Welcome to Reeling in the Tears, the show that brings you 50 years of English football and failure. Okay, Mark. Before we go any further, though, I just want to let everybody know the premise of the show. So when I first laid out the premise of the show that it's Reeling in the Tears and it's 50 years of English football and failure, I sort of said it to a few people, and some of the reactions that I got were like, "Yeah, it sounds a little bit, a little bit petty, a little bit bitter, even." But I was like, I didn't really understand it. Like, I was under the impression that, one of the nation's favourite pastimes, one of the things that banded the nation together was every 2 to 4 years that they'd sit down and watch England, the old enemy, serve up whatever sort of humiliating defeat or glorious failure that that might come their way. Now, am I right or wrong? Is that not something that bands the whole country together? Now, obviously not our tin whistle enthusiast cousins in the north, but is that leaving them aside? Am I not right or wrong? Is it not something that really, really unites the whole country to watch the old enemy getting the stuff kicked out of them by someone?
Absolutely, we've had to put up with BBC and UTV bigging up their team for the last, well, in my case, 30 odd years. See, Ireland have only just recently qualified for these. 88 was our first tournament, so yeah, we've had to put up with their the build up to their heroic failures or abject failures for the last number of years. So yeah, 100% agree with you there.
And Mark, if you had to pick out your own personal favourite, be it abstract failure or heroic defeat or whatever you want to phrase it, which one? Because they are the two different types, aren't they? It's usually absolutely abstract, humiliating defeat, or some sort of heroic all guts and glory, without the glory type things.
All guts, just all guts.
Just all guts. Sorry, yeah. And when the guts aren't there, it gets really messy. But if you had to pick your own personal favourite, which one would you?
Well, if I was to go for an example of heroic failure, I'd be looking at 1996, the Euros on home soil, where they got ever so close. But like I was saying to you before, I never really worry about England when there's a good team left.
Yeah.
So they had to play Germany, so I was confident that Germany would see them off.
Yeah, and what's it? Sorry, I'm then. What's an example then of the other one? If that's the example,
the abject failure. Yeah. So
what's the humiliating defeat?
They have a long list of those. It's like the Beatles' back catalogue. pick your favourite. So I presume we all remember 1988 in Germany.
Yeah.
They went. Obviously, we beat them, but they went home after 3 defeats. They lost to the Russians and the Dutch as well. You could say 2016 against the Icelanders. 2014, they went home with 3 defeats.
Right. Let's leave some of the surprises.
Do you want me to go on?
Well, I do want you to go on, but for the premise, seeing that the show was going to follow every major tournament for 50 years, we better not.
We leave some alone.
The good times to come. And listen, sorry, I jumped ahead of you, but if you were to pick your personal favourite out of all of them, which one are you going for?
Oh, it has to be 88. It has to be 88. Yeah. Obviously, everyone remembers Stuttgart, but they were just dreadful. Tony Adams at the back with his arm in the air. Gary Lineker, I think, had hepatitis or something, so he couldn't see his way out of a wet paper bag. So yeah, they went home in misery.
It went Walker's bag, Mark.
Oh yeah. He probably could have sowed potatoes on the field.
Yeah. If from myself, no, like I said, there's been a good few, but I have fond memories of the 4-1 against Germany in 2010. Yes. I think they had Capello in, and they thought that Capello would do the business for them. Obviously very, very successful in club management and everything else in the 90s and in even the early 90s. I think he won the league with Roma and all, didn't he? Just 2000 and stuff like that. So it probably got him too late in hindsight. It's something that they probably didn't realise. But the 4-1 to Germany, and I liked it because they looked completely out of depth. Number one, they looked completely out of depth. Germany played this modern attacking football, but also then the Lampard, they did fight their way back into it. I know they could come back from the Lampard goal.
It could have been so different.
Probably did cross the line, but it was great. I was in Portugal and was in a Celtic bar, a Scottish bar, and just in the middle of it, they showed the replay and it looked like it was over the line, and some little Scottish fella about 15 or 16 just jumps up and he's like, that's for 1966, you bastards! Shouts it across at the English. That's for 66, and the whole place.
1066 was it?
Yeah, bro. Well, yeah. I should have asked them though.
Yeah, was it 1966? That one down the grudge, Eddie, the Scots.
Yeah, so that's for me. That was my favourite.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Listen,
well, I mean,
as we mentioned, seeing that we mentioned 66, Mark, and then. The question doesn't need to be asked. As horrifying as the answer might be, the reason that a question needs to be asked is...
I know, you can't even say it, can you?
1966. How did England, Mark? How did England manage to become champions of the world? How did they manage to win that World Cup in 66?
Well, what you're asking me there is how did a country with a population of 55 million, vast resources, and an Englishman as the head of FIFA, and a tournament held on home soil, and waited to favour the home side? You're asking me how they won the World Cup?
You have a few theories anyway, Mark. Is that what,
I have a few theories. I don't know. Do you believe in conspiracy theories or not?
Well, it's not, it's like asking to believe in Jesus. Well, I mean, it's like,
yeah. Well,
is there a conspiracy theory? Have I heard it?
Well, you haven't, have you? Right. Well, you know, there's the three biggies in world history. So, first one is who was the shadowy figure on the grassy knoll?
Right. JFK.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know if it was somebody was.
Wasn't it? That's the theory, right? That's who shot JFK, right? Yeah. That's number one.
Right. Number two is, did Neil Armstrong land on the moon, or was he filming bouncing around a small farm in Iowa? Playing golf in Iowa and planting flags in a cornfield.
Moon landing, was it a hoax?
Right? Yeah, it was a hoax. And the big one then is, when Christopher Columbus set off to discover America, did he fall off the edge of the earth? So, you know, you're flat earthers.
Flat earthers, yeah.
Right. So they're the three biggies. Obviously, there's the modern ones with elections and what have you.
And 9/11 and... Yeah,
9/11 and this, that, and the other. But they're the three biggies, right? So the fourth one was the 1966 World Cup rigged.
Oh, wow.
Right. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah. Do you think it was?
I hope so.
It leads us nicely on to a character that we get into called Sir Stanley Rouse.
Sir Stanley
Rouse, right? He would have been one of these, I'd call him like the godfather of the blazer wearers.
Yeah.
You know, the brass buttons and the slacks community.
Yeah, so they were like the head, basically the head of the football fraternity, isn't it? Like
so
in England,
he would have been one of these guys with the exotic moustaches, and you know, looked a bit like the Colonel out of Fawlty Towers.
If he had his way, the game would stay amateur and played by a load of toughs. Eating against it, instead of the football we have now, would be the equivalent of that boat race between Oxford and Cambridge, wouldn't it? And we'd watch one football match every year, and it'd be fucking Eton against Cambridge or something. Whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
That'd be it. Yeah.
So basically, this guy, Sir Stanley, who incidentally was an ex-referee himself and a lawn maker on the game. And if you're ever in Zurich after this lockdown, take a trip to the FIFA's museum in Zurich, where you'll see his notes proudly displayed.
Oh, well. I'll have to put that on the bucket list now to go and see Sir Stanley scribbles. Yeah.
Anyway, so he was appointed head of FIFA in 1961 and head of the organising committee for the 66 World Cup. And as such, he was responsible in appointing the referees.
Oh.
So there was 32 refs selected, and 28 of those were European and only 4 were South American. So there was something going on there between Europe and South America at the time. England were being left behind on the field.
They won the last 2 World Cups. They're going for 3. Sorry, they're going for 3 in a row. And I suppose it's different ethical codes, and this is what they would have said. The different ethical codes, they were sort of fighting for the dominance of international football then at the time. Like Latin America, the Latin American and the Northern European code. You know, the South Americans, if they continue winning, winning tournaments and producing the best players in the world and the best teams in the world, that they will their way will win out, and he'll go extinct like the dinosaur that he is.
Well, they're kind of left with a reputation as inventors and lawmakers, but not as footballers. So that's what he's probably trying to protect as well.
Yeah, but I think perhaps, I do. But I think maybe by the end of this, I think Mark will see that
we'll see.
that reputation might possibly be left in tatters, especially as organisers. Yeah, so the new world against the old world, almost, isn't it?
Yeah, he definitely had a problem with Brazil, no doubt about it. It was right from the start. He wanted to ensure that they didn't get the hat trick. There was perceived and real slights on both sides. Actually, Brazilians had a problem.
When is this? Like, as soon as they arrive in the country, this is starting.
Yeah, well, basically. Before the first match, the Brazilians were offended by the late introduction of a mandatory drug test, which was designed by the England team doctor, which hadn't happened in the previous tournaments. They were so incensed that they actually asked the organising committee, was it all right if they could drink coffee? Their national drink, and if it was banned, then they reckon that England should have been banned from drinking tea. So, I mean, it was sweeping generalisation.
Put down their coffee, put down their. And what about the other side of the house?
Well, as defending champions, the BBC obviously went over to check on the training and the preparation of the Brazilians, yeah. And when they got there, they were denounced as spies. their van was attacked by the Brazilians. So you can see where there was tensions definitely between the countries.
Yeah. So one is we're going to have to drug test your players, and the other one is batter these boys. Basically,
hop off the BBC van just in case they go back with some footage that they shouldn't.
Yeah. So
what are they going to find out?
What else was there? Was there any other? Was there any other?
So well, basically, as soon as Brazil landed at Heathrow, there was issues. So. The team bus to bring them from Heathrow to their hotel they were based in Bolton. That was late.
Yeah.
So eventually, when they got to the training ground, there were no goal posts. There was, I think I'm making this up. The grass hadn't been cut, and the groundsman told them to quote go somewhere else.
Sling your hook. Sling your hook.
Sling your hook.
You lads aren't from around here, eh?
There were also there would have been black tie functions to go to as defending champions. There would have been a lot of dinners and that. So the organising committee organised London cabbies, to go and pick them up. But they're from London. They weren't from Bolton. So they got lost, and you could just they were just wandering around the streets of Bolton looking for hotels.
Taking on a magical mystery tour. Not to keep quoting the Beatles all night, but.
So you can see there was I don't know, could you call it a slight, or would it have been just bad planning? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I can see what you mean. When you say a perceived slight, there's definitely basically they're both on the defensive, aren't they? The Brazilians are on the defensive.
Exactly.
There's a lack of trust. Feeding off what we said earlier about the South American and European rivalry, the Brazilians have a feeling that this lot have it in for us. And I suppose when you arrive in a country to play a World Cup and you're an international professional football team, and you arrive to to a place where it's your training ground and there's no goalposts, surely you have to say, well, lads, I don't think these have our best intentions.
It's like Saipan all over again, isn't it? It's the original to Saipan.
Oh, you'd love to drop Roy Keane.
Roy Keane in the middle of that. Oh, God, he'd be gone. Tommy Gorman would be chasing him all over the place.
So listen, how did they? Despite all of this, how did they get on then when the game started? Brazil.
Well, okay, so they were in a group with Bulgaria, Hungary, and Portugal, right? And it's important to note then that Sir Stanley appointed a German ref for the match against Bulgaria.
Right.
Pele scored but got himself injured. Yeah, they won.
Hold on, Mark. He got himself injured.
Well, what happened here is that the German ref must have been looking at the crowd or something, because Bulgarians proceeded to kick 7 shades of abuse out of Pele, and kicked him off the park, basically.
Yeah, and they were let do it.
They were let do it. The ref, I don't know, was he instructed, or were all the refs instructed to be lenient, or to allow the tackles flow? but basically the bottom line was he was injured and had to be. I think he missed the next game down against Hungary. The Brazilians lost 3-1 to Hungary. Although they had an English ref on this occasion and had 2 goals disallowed.
So they lose.
So again, you're feeding the Brazilian sense of injustice. 2 goals disallowed by an English ref. They lose 3-1. So then in their third game, Brazil play Portugal with Eusebio playing. There's an English ref here for this game. Eusebio scores 2 goals and Brazil lose 3-1. So out of their 3 group games, they lose 2 of them. So Brazil are out of the tournament at the group stage.
But like Pele does play that game, but there's a quote that says, it was a similar sort of treatment, and I think there's a famous quote is that he was man-marked by this lad Joe Maurice, and every time Pele got the ball, he fouled him, and every time he got the ball again, he'd do the same thing. He'd foul him again, but just a little bit harder. So basically the same thing. He just got kicked.
Kicked it from pillar to post, yeah. So he's out of the tournament. Brazil are out. You can just imagine Sir Stanley in his underground base like a Bond genius with his Panini wall chart and just a big red X against Brazil. So part A of the plan has come together. One
down. Yeah,
one down. 13 to go.
What I do think is important to remember at this time while you're thinking about the referees. As we go further on and we'll talk about the quarterfinals, we'll compare how the referees have the referees treatment here of these tackles to a couple of other incidents later on in the tournament. Okay, so that's on the pitch, but it wasn't just on the pitch, though, was it? That they had a couple of worries about the tournament and its organisation.
Certainly not. The Brazilians had a big grievance against the country itself. So if you think about it, Brazil, let's say the population is 100 million, right? So this is a pre-Twitter.
At the time,
around it. So football mad country. You're talking pre-Twitter. TV was only really starting off. So the nation depends on its football news from the newspapers and photographs, to keep in touch. So the organising committee accredited 2 photographers for Brazil. So you can imagine with the time zones and, as you said before, the late night chemists trying to get those.
I hope there's a late night chemist to get all them developed.
Trying to get those.
So two photographers to take photos for, God knows how many newspapers back in Brazil, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. So just as an example, comparison, England were given 14 accreditations for photographers. So population of half gets like 4-7 times as many photographers. So it was so bad that the head of the Federation of Brazilian Journalists demanded that they remedy the grave injustice and discriminatory and odious regulations. Now, have you ever heard language like that? If any language like that turned up in a Cold War speech, you'd go fair enough.
But
about the lack of
the organisation of the lack of journalists,
I tell you, they really know how to speak the lingo, don't they? They remedy the grave injustice. The grave injustice.
Mark, the Brazilian National Federation of Professional Journalists didn't end there. They didn't end there. No, they demanded that the grave injustice, right, and odious regulations, right, be remedied.
Be remedied.
Then they said failure to do so would result in a series of reprisals throughout the world. Which is something that you hear from a James Bond villain at the start.
Exactly.
I want one. This is obviously old James Bond. I want $1 million. If I don't get it,
a helicopter.
There'll be a series of reprisals throughout the world. So again.
Oh my God! Very good. The Brazilians, they certainly know how to develop a team.
Did they have any other issues?
Well, they did. They actually did. There was complaints that the trains were late, kickoff times were late. They reckoned that the telephones didn't work, so for the commentators to speak back to their home people, they weren't able to at times.
They weren't able to get the match reports.
Yeah, exactly. The telegrams were late, so they were 3 hours late. Some of them. So you can imagine telegramming a match report back to your editor back in Brazil, and it's 3 hours after the end of the match.
Yeah.
Who's going to be interested? We're all asleep. What else happened? So there were there was issues about the sort of the accommodation that the media guys were staying in. It was described as being like a boarding school.
Yeah.
And they were awoken every morning at 8 o'clock by an alarm which was described as a strident siren. What's a strident siren?
I don't know. I can't imagine what that even sounds like. But it must have been. And listen, when they were woken up at whatever time by this strident siren, were they allowed to have a cup of coffee, or was that?
No, that was banter.
No.
Well, we don't know if it was ever actually off the agenda. But
what is this? What is a strident siren? What is a strident siren?
I don't know. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear it, just to compare it to a normal alarm clock.
Yeah, but it was something that it was something so
bad. It must have been bad because one of them threatened to go to the Queen to put a stop to the abuse.
So,
go to the Queen.
And Your Majesty, I don't know if you're aware, but there's about the
siren going off in the boarding school. Oh God. They really put the Queen on a pedestal, didn't they? As if she's going to do anything about it.
Listen, I think, do you think there's any chance that we might see that in the next episode of The Crown?
Well, hopefully.
The journalists turning up and...
I'd love to see them when they get to 66, what they do there.
I have to deal with this.
It'd be hilarious.
And listen, you heard something else about it.
It didn't end there, Dylan. It didn't end there.
It didn't end.
There's more. The British ambassador, a gentleman called Leslie Fry, was reporting back from Rio to HQ in London, and he was saying he made a comment that press comment in Brazil is voluminous and uniformly abusive, particularly around the flag affair.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're going to ask, what's the flag affair, Mark, aren't you?
Can you just repeat that one more time? Press comment in Brazil this week when they finally got the telegrams back. That is.
Yeah, 3 weeks later when the tournament was
this
over.
week, but it happened last week. Can you just say that comment? Voluminous and
voluminous and uniformly abusive. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, the journalists really had it in for the host country at this stage.
Yeah.
So, the flag affair, I hear you ask.
Yes, tell us more.
So, the host country traditionally had always produced the official flags and the pennants and the crests and all that paraphernalia around the tournament.
Yeah.
But the organising committee...
For everyone, sorry, Mark.
For everyone, yeah. For all the teams.
Yeah.
And if ever there was a host country that knew how to make a flag, it would have been the British.
This is the country of the Commonwealth, after all, Mark.
Yeah,
they know flags when they see one.
They know a flag, and if they don't know it, they take it and put their name on it. Put a Union flag in the corner and call it their own. But so they refused. They didn't refuse. They asked the other countries to produce their own flags for fear of getting it wrong. Was their reason.
Yeah, I have a couple of quotes here on that. So your man, this Leslie Fry character says, "Offence." This is one of his exact quotes. Okay, and offence has been taken at our requesting competing countries to supply their own national flags. A skinflint exaction contrasting badly with Brazil's regular production of flags.
This is supposed to be about football.
I very much hope something can be done, and quickly, to satisfy opinion here. The British image in this country, herewithal much respected, is being sadly tarnished by this idiotic affair.
An idiotic affair?
There you go.
This is like politics. This is like modern day politics, the way they're talking.
Yeah. And when it was requested, like you said, then they went back then to the organising committee with this and said, listen, the diplomat in Brazil is saying this, and he's asking, can you please just sort this out?
Yeah,
they refused, like you said. Yeah, they refused. The organising committee refused, insisting that any increase in the allocation. They refused and said it was their desire. This is the exact quote. It's not about meanness, because they were being accused of being tight arses, right? It's not about meanness. Just our normal desire to do the right thing. So I don't know. Of course. Mark, the British desire to do the right thing. Well,
yeah.
Should we?
We just leave that there, will we?
We just leave that one there. You know, there's a famine in the country. Let's sell the food out from it. Anyway, listen. Moving on. The British desire to do the right thing. We all know it, and not to display out of date flags or flags flown upside down.
I think. They did get a couple of the flags wrong. There was a couple of issues where they put the wrong design on.
That was it. So all around, not your fame British hospitality. Not
your typical British hospitality. No. More
So
like quality towers.
I did have a theory though, lads. It's like, have you ever heard of vexophobia? Apparently, it's a fear of giant flags, which maybe
there is an actual.
There is a vexophobic. That's what they might have been.
Maybe that's why they gave up the empire.
That could have been it.
They could only hack four flags at one.
The response from this in Brazil at the time, and Mark, just to sum up the feeling in Brazil. Now, I know your man had mentioned that the press comment was uniformly abusive, right? Just to give you an idea exactly what he meant, right? Journal in the 13th of July in the Journal de Brazil, the 13th of July, 2 days into the competition. So
they had their abuse ready.
They had the judgment was made. Like, they didn't hang around. They took one look at it.
Brazil had left. No.
They took one look at it, and this is what they came up with. Two days into the tournament, this is what they come up with. The English have failed completely in their organisation of this great competition. They have taken no trouble whatsoever to offer good service, have instead substituted concern for something else, for charging excessively for all the poor and inefficient services they manage to offer. The greed and lack of organisation of the English is evident everywhere.
After 2 days, they made it.
2 days. 2 days.
They do travel the country, the length and breadth of Bolton.
2 days into it. That's what they have to say. The English have failed completely in the organisation of this great competition after 2 days.
Oh, God.
But then again, maybe they're.
When were they getting the messages? When were they getting the messages?
I believe them, Mark. That's the point.
It sounds fair to me.
So listen, that's enough. I think we leave the Brazilians.
Right, they're gone. The hat-trick is gone.
They're gone, they're out. So Stanley's plan is coming along nicely.
Yeah, it's hatching nicely, yeah.
You're right. So on to the home nation now, the English. Who was in their group? How were they fared now? How did they?
Well,
they still have to get their own job done, you know? They can't
exactly, there's no point in knocking in Brazil if they're going to lose themselves.
Yeah.
So they were in a group with Uruguay, Mexico and France. All matches were played at Wembley.
Ooh, so a few Latin teams in there.
Yeah, a couple of tricky games there now. They opened the game against the tournament against Uruguay with a 0-0 draw. Now, opening games by their nature are always very cagey and tight.
Of course.
And the nerves to be flying around as the host nation. And by all accounts, it was a poor game. The team was slightly different as to what we'd remember when we get to the final. So, like, Jimmy Greaves was playing. There was no sign of Jeff Hurst. They played with wingers starting off. So they had a guy called Ian Callaghan from Liverpool and a guy from Man United called John Connolly.
And that's interesting, Mark, because the team, obviously the 66 team is known as the wingless wonders, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And it was during the group games that the manager, Sir Ralph, as he was to become, sort of realised that playing with wingers wasn't the best way to go. After the 0-0 draw, they had a point. They were probably just happy to get through it, and take their point and run. So the second game then, it was a game against Mexico. They were struggling again well into the second half until Bobby Charlton scored a 30-yard screamer by all accounts into the top corner. Now, I've seen highlights. I've seen the goal, and it is an absolute belter.
Mark, it's funny. Sorry, Mark. It's funny you should mention the Mexicans though there because they didn't escape Sir Stanley's clutches.
Did they get to Sir Stanley treatment as well?
Is a week into the tournament, okay? 88 Mexicans turned up at the country's embassy in London, okay? Turned up outside the embassy. They'd all booked and paid for first-class accommodation through an English travel agency, which I bet you was fucking Thomas Cook.
Thomas Cook, yeah. Don't ever.
But were unhappy with their hotels. So this is where we go. Some had paid for single rooms and had been placed into double rooms. Some had paid for private bathrooms and are just not being given them. Ruben Gonzalez Sosa from the Mexican embassy, who visited the hotels concerned, and thought that they were, by any standards, third-class hotels, right? But they paid for first class. In some cases, tourists who had booked a single room with an ensuite had been told to share a room with a bathroom with 3 strangers.
So they got a hostel is what they got. They got a hostel.
Well, possibly. The next part might explain it, all right? it says first of all, the English response was 85% of the people concerned were placed elsewhere, right? But the scandal was widely reported in Mexico. Okay, so I have a couple of
3 weeks later.
I have a couple of theories on this, right? So it says another report said that every Mexican tourist staying in one hotel had been arrested on suspicion of robbery. So I think perhaps that those ones arrested on the suspicion of robbery that were pissing with the 3 strangers in one room, they were probably in jail.
That was the room they were in.
That's where they were. Or also, I think...
It wasn't mentioned in the Mexican press, though, obviously.
No, or also, I think, I reckon it was a case of the ones around the place knew that there was a few quid to be made, and when they were sticking hotel signs up over their house, they're probably...
Over the flat out the back, yeah.
Yeah, their little flat out the back, that 2 up and 2 down, and they were ramming as many Mexicans into it as they could and charging them. But I think it also sounds like that attitude of, oh sure, these backward savages, sure, you can fuck them in anywhere, they won't complain.
It seems to be like that attitude. Yeah.
This would be like luxury for them. That's what they would.
Yeah, they've probably never been to Mexico or never seen the Mexican hacienda, so they just went, stay here.
Right, so anyway, that's what happened with the Mexicans. So, but they're beaten, right? So they what have they got?
They're beaten, and it was actually after that win, and specifically after that Charlton goal, that all the English players started to believe they could win it. So that early on, they actually started to believe.
And just on another note,
Jones' remake wasn't gleaming, but
no,
they were dreaming.
They were. But also, isn't it important to remember it? Like those Mexican reports, they were reported back to Mexico. These are the stories that go around, and the next World Cup, the next World Cup is in September, and it's important now that the image of the English and the treatment of the Mexicans is important to remember. In 4 years' time, it's they have to go over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so the Mexicans are gone. Who's the final? The final game's against the French.
The final game is against the French. Yes. So
and what happens there?
Well, England win 2-0, but there was controversy over both the goals that they got. The first one was offside.
Blatantly offside is the reports I've read from everyone, even from English journalists.
Right. So we'll give the French that was offside. The second goal, apparently England's hatchet man, Nobby Styles, sided down the French captain Jacques Simon.
Yeah.
And as your man was lying on the ground with his leg in a brace, England ran through and scored the goal. No problem.
So Sir Stanley's ethos and ethics of this being a game for the gentleman and there should be some chivalrous actions taking part, that just went out the fucking window completely.
Out the window, yeah. I'm not sure where the ref was from, but he definitely had an English T-shirt on underneath his black strip.
Yeah, I think he's German. I think he's the ref is German.
Oh, German ref, okay. Well, so you can see England are out of their group with not too much trouble, 5 points out of 6. So they're into the next round. Job
done. Knockout football. Here we come. Yeah. Right, so this is when England they're through, they're out of the group, and this is when things get even more interesting, because in the quarterfinals now, England are set to play Argentina and Germany are set to play Uruguay. So you have basically the chief conspirators in this whole thing, which is Roos's England, obviously, and back then by the other European heavyweight, Germany, who took up the majority of the referees, and then they're set to face off against the 2 remaining South American powerhouses or whatever you want to call them. So they're set to play off. So what we find first then, I suppose, when we were looking into it, was that the Argentinians got that similar sort of English welcome and hospitality that the Brazilians received. So when they arrived down to their training ground, the grass wasn't cut, right? Again, the grass wasn't cut. Quite incredibly, again, there was no goalposts in the training ground.
Where were the goalposts? Were they got stored in a little clubhouse somewhere?
I mean, surely it's exactly where to go, surely it's not too difficult to decide when there's an international football team coming to your country again to play in the world
to train,
right? To train, surely you go.
Okay, what do we need? We need short grass and we need goalposts.
Where do they need? Do they need to go to the place where they have the goalposts or without the goalposts? Like, I mean, they're calling it a training ground, but surely it's just a field, if you know.
Exactly, a field. I wonder if you asked the groundsman, was there like a shed somewhere with like 6 sets of goalposts in that nobody knew about? He just expected to be asked for the key.
Yeah, his to-do list, whatever he had to do. How was cutting the grass and putting up the goalposts at the bottom of the to-do list? Like, how are they the things that he forgot to get around to? Should I cut the grass and put up the goalposts? Surely it has to be intentional. It has to be.
Has to be. Yeah.
I mean, what did you say? Like, they only had, like, how long did they have to prepare for this? This tournament?
8 years. They had 8 years to prepare.
Yeah. And they couldn't cut the grass and put up a few goalposts. So I had a thing when I was thinking about it. If 86 was the hand of God, then I think. Sorry, hold on a second. No. Sorry.
86 is the hand of God, yeah.
86 is the hand of God, right? So what they had to do is what they had to do to fix this was the Argentinians. They had to, number one, they went down to Aston Villa and West Brom, right, and asked them, could they borrow a crossbar? They borrow a crossbar, right? And then they had to get a local carpenter to knock together some goalposts.
Right.
They went to a local carpenter to knock together some goalposts. So I was saying 86 is the hand of God. Then surely then 66, by the sounds of it, then is the crossbar of Christ.
You can see a young Diego Maradona watching this on his telly at home and getting
sure can. And like, there's so many football grounds in Birmingham. Like, if they can go to Aston Villa and get spare goalposts off Villa, and go to West Brom and get spare posts off Villa, off West Brom. Yeah. And then you've also got Wolves, and you've also got Coventry, and you've also
Solihull Moors.
Solihull
Moors are there,
a lesser known
Midlands team.
Yeah.
What's all they're on?
Basically, why when they're organising, why do they not say, okay, you can train there? Now, we understand maybe there's games in Villa Park, but there's not games in Coventry's ground, in Villa's ground, in Wolves' ground. There's not games in 5 of those stadiums in the Midlands. So why could they not have trained there? I don't know.
It sounds like maybe Sir Stanley sent a telegram that didn't take 3 days to arrive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Close the gate. Close the gate.
You know what needs to be done, yeah. I think
the Argentinians got a rough time as well.
Yeah, and I think it's clear that maybe the anti South American mood, the building up to this, and this is like
it's probably nothing to do with the Falklands.
No. You took the words out of my mouth. Like I think people often attribute that the bad blood between England and Argentina was due to the conflict in 1982. But now it seems like it's about
missing goalposts,
missing goalposts,
and a lack of referees.
Yeah,
and loads of and a couple of journalists on
that's it. It's all about missing goalposts. It's nothing to do with the Falklands War. Listen, I'd love if Tommy Shelby. It wouldn't happen now if Tommy Shelby was knocking around then in the 60s.
Maybe when we get to season 9 of
Peaky Blinders.
Blinders, it'll be a bit.
Tommy the Argies are here.
Drawn on a cigarette. Yeah.
I don't know anything about goalposts. Yeah, that's it. Sir Stanley Roos, you know the way Sir Stanley Roos would have got Tommy Shelby to take care of these sort of things. The Shelby family would have got the telegram down from Sir Stanley.
Absolutely, yeah.
It wasn't, like you said, with the Brazilian organisation. It's not quite over yet. So next thing that happens is, right, they arrange a training session, right, and then they get on. They're going to a training session in this place called Lilleshall, right? And their coach gets lost. A 40-mile journey takes over 2 hours. And they left Birmingham when they left Birmingham, then that was the training session. When they left Birmingham, then before the quarter final at Wembley, so they have to go from Birmingham all the way down to London, and they were expecting to be put up in a central London hotel, but they were dropped off in this place called Welling, right? Were they brought there by London taxi drivers by any chance? I don't know. Look, the red, the red buses. Obviously, maybe they were brought up to Birmingham and told to drive the buses around Birmingham for this occasion. So this led to an 80-minute standoff outside their hotel.
But I thought the Mexicans were out of
it. Yeah, it wasn't a famed Mexican standoff. We had to settle just for an Argentinian standoff.
Argentinian one, okay.
So, but what I always associate with a standoff is a sort of, you know, a standoff. I want a helicopter and
yeah.
Obviously, in this day, I was like, obviously, in this case, I want a crossbar.
And 12 more journalists.
12 more journalists. I want the grass cup. And someone knows the directions where they're driving the So that, very good. That's obviously what went on. And I seen another, and then there was one last thing. Then there was in the middle of a Paris-based association. So in France, the journalists had this to say: they decried the tournament's regrettable and deplorable arrangements. And then one of the final straws then was that when they got to Wembley, they were promised 20 minutes to train. They were promised a time slot to train in Wembley, right? But on the evening before the quarter final against England, the Argentinians were not allowed their mandatory 20-minute practice session at Wembley on the grounds that would have interfered with the evening's greyhound racing.
This is the World Cup, lads. It's the World Cup.
How far?
Don't know.
It's a greyhound don't know. Like, how far down the list of excuses does it have to be? Was the
World Cup was it even well advertised in England before England won? Did anyone know what was going on?
Exactly. Can we have that for the greyhound racing that night? Is there anything else on? No, it should be all right. I'll book you down for the greyhound racing, yeah? Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, the excuses are feeble.
It doesn't make sense.
The excuses really are feeble. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's all the dirty tricks played on the RGs for now. So the 23rd of July is the day that all the quarterfinals kicked off. They all kicked off simultaneously at 3:00, right? So again, England are due to play Argentina, but Germany are due to play Uruguay, right? So just before we go into it, we might get the we will take care of the Germany and Uruguay quarterfinal first, okay?
Okay.
The quarterfinal. The quarterfinal between Germany and Uruguay, okay? So, actually, you know what? I've got to go back and just do a group game very quickly between Argentina and Germany, just to give everybody an idea of the tensions going into the quarterfinals between South America and Europe. So, Germany and Argentina drew 0-0 at Villa Park in the group stages. Okay. And according to the Birmingham Evening Mail, it was everything the World Cup knockers had been hoping for. A negative, petty, defensive, locked out affair. Argentina's Rafael Aberlecht was sent off with 25 minutes to play for kneeing Wolfgang Weber in the groin.
As you do.
And his manager, Juan Carlos Lorenzo, ran onto the pitch to confront match officials. And then Aberlecht had this to say: I can't believe I'm being sent off, said Aberlecht. I thought my rugby tackle earlier in the game might have got me sent off. I was worried about that foul, but not this one.
It's bad when the players are starting to call the fouls on themselves.
I can't believe he's kicking me off or sending me off for kicking your man the bollocks. It's the rugby tackle earlier.
What was the ref doing?
Yeah. So I was worried about that one. The German coach Helmut Schroen said of its size performance, so it was 0-0, so he wasn't happy, but he said the standard of our play suffered because so many of our players were frightened. So I just want to use that just to set the atmosphere for England versus Argentina later
so
on.
We know the type of team Argentina have become.
Yeah, and we know then maybe what the Germans are to, and maybe where the Germans' head is at when they go into the next. Anyway, then on to the quarterfinals, right? Uruguay versus Germany. Here we go again. Uruguay had their captain, Horacio Choche, sent off for kicking Lothar Emmerich in the stomach in the 49th minute. What's going on? Like, what? Why is there? What
is the story with the South Americans?
He then slapped Hugh Sealer in his way off the pitch. Hector Silva followed 5 minutes later for another foul. And then Schroen again said this: they appear to have no idea how to tackle properly, said Schroen. They lose their heads and their regard for the rules. Then, saving the best for last, Julio Cortez, Uruguay's number 7, kicked the referee on his way off the pitch.
Kicked the referee?
And earned himself a 6-match ban.
Oh, lovely. So Stanley saw to that one.
And then here's the final. Here's the final one. One of the German players ended up spending the entire night in hospital, passing blood after one of the Uruguayan defenders had grabbed his testicles during the defeat at Hillsborough. The German player was the rightly named Helmut Haller.
Helmut
Haller had.
Helmut was pumping blood, was it?
Was pumping. Helmut was pumping blood all night. So, after the Uruguayan got a good old squeeze.
Poor fella. It's like Vinnie Jones all over again.
It is like, Vinnie Jones. Right, so if you think that's bad, then wait you hear the next line. Even more controversial was the game between England and Argentina at Wembley, described by the observers, McIlvanney, as not so much a football match as an international incident.
Here we go again with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did they ring the embassy on this one, did they?
The Argentina captain, Antonio Ratton, was sent off after 35 minutes for dissent and refused to leave the pitch, delaying the game for 9 minutes. Jeff Horst scored the only goal with 12 minutes to play. It was clear, Ratton later said, that the referee played with an England shirt on.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And when we say dissent, the exact quote was that Ratton, referee Rudolf Kretlin, again a German referee, sent Ratton off for violence of the tongue.
What's that consist of? What language was he speaking in?
He said exactly. He said that's what they said. He said their defense was, but he doesn't even speak Spanish. How does he know what we're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And apparently the referee's response afterwards, he was interviewed. He said, "I didn't need to understand what he said. Just the way he looked at me." So he literally sent him off for looking at him.
Looking at him funny. Yeah.
And then, so these are the same officials who let Pele basically get a broken ankle, get kicked out of the game so badly that he couldn't play one of the games, and then was a spectator for the third. But someone looks at them crooked and, but he's South American, so he can go.
He's gone, yeah. And would it be right in saying that Ratton just walked off? And
no, man, it wasn't. He refused to leave the pitch for 9 minutes. Security guards and police officers had to come onto the pitch to remove him from the pitch.
Oh God!
So they had to go on and remove him on the pitch. He had to be removed from the field by 2 policemen, and in a final sign of disgust, he ripped and crinkled up a British pennant.
No wonder they didn't want to make them. If people are going to disrespect the pennants and the flags, there's no wonder.
That's it. Yeah, it was too risky. There we go. This arguably started the long-lasting rivalry between both national teams. So, and this led on to FIFA then to introduce red and yellow cards, because he was dismissed. Like, he wasn't actually shown a red card. The referee just called him over and said, "Here, bud, like a nightclub bouncer. Here, bud, you have to go. So,
yeah, and as all people who've been kicked out of nightclubs now, you don't go.
You don't go quietly into the night. Yeah, so there was a few things after this. So I think Ketlin's quote was, "I just want to forget the whole dreadful experience," said Ketlin, right? The match was one of the roughest I have ever refereed. It was terrible, a disgrace. I sent Ratton off because he was following me around and shouting at me. I had no option. He was trying to be the referee.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, but it didn't end there though, Mark, did it?
It certainly did not.
The match is over, right? So the match does end 1-0, like we said. The horse scores, ends 1-0, but it doesn't end there. So one of the Argentinian players urinated all over the Wembley tunnel. There was furniture thrown into the English dressing room by the Argentinians. They were flinging chairs and stuff into the dressing room at the English players. And yeah,
did I hear he sat on the red carpet, the Queen's red carpet as well?
Sorry, that's right. When he was delayed,
former protest.
When he grabs the pennant on the way up, but somewhere in between this, right, the little red carpet that the Queen would handshake the players and introduce the players, that was in Wembley, and he plonks himself down on this and refuses to budge. Refused to.
Well, the embassy was nowhere to be seen, so he had to do something.
And the fans start throwing cans of beer at him while he's sitting down on this, apparently, right? But there's a famous thing where you start to say, well, where's the footage of this? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
You say, there's some footage of him sort of refusing to leave the pitch.
All you see is the referee pointing and him going.
Yeah.
And that's all there is.
Yeah, you don't see the cans being thrown. You don't see him sitting on the thing.
Yeah.
You don't see him scrumping up the pennant. And apparently, as the years have rolled by,
do you think Antonio might be big?
People have questioned this. So, right, apparently, the only person who keeps telling this story in interviews is Ratton himself. He's basically gone like you would maybe on a night out with your friends or after you left the nightclub. Yeah. Oh, what happened? Oh, you should have seen me.
Wait till I tell you. Oh, fucking they tore me over. I ripped the pennant off the wall. I sat in their car. They're like, no, you didn't. I did. Fuck them. So, I think Ratton has maybe he's
possibly exaggerated the tale a little bit more than it was.
But it didn't end there, did it?
No, it didn't end there, and this bit is true. So they piss all over the famous Wembley tunnel. They throw the chairs in. That all happens, right? They go into the dressing room.
The pizza at Old Trafford.
They quickly get changed, right? England head for the team bus. The RG's hot on their tail. So they go and they attack the English team. They attack the English team bus, right? They set about attacking and smashing up the English team bus, right? And when somebody tried to stop them, Mark, do you know what happened when somebody tried to stop them?
Oh, I do.
They had half an orange squeezed into their eye.
That's what you want in every fight. In every fight that you've ever been in, what's the one weapon you want to bring?
A segment of orange. That's what you do, isn't it? Quick, lads, let's go after them and we'll if they're on the bus, break the bus up. Quick, everybody grab something to throw at the bus or hold the bus, hurl at the bus. What will I get? Grab that boot, grab that flagpole, grab that whatever. Grab that segment of orange.
Yeah, Antonio, bring the orange.
Yeah, so that's it. Someone tried to stop them and they had the orange squeezed into their face. But listen,
oh god.
There was a couple of the media fallout after this, and the interview was from a number of people. It didn't end there, so there was a couple of things said afterwards. The Argentinian half an orange squeezed into his face, unbelievable. So the Argentinian officials, the Argentinian FA spokesman had this to say: I do not approve of the conflict of our players and officials, but they were provoked by the referee. He was absolutely biased in the favour of England. The referee and those who selected him, Stanley Roos, were in my view responsible for the trouble. When FIFA met to consider the reaction to the quarterfinals, the head of the Argentinian delegation, Juan Santiago, called Stanley Roos the English FIFA president a bleeding moron.
He didn't use that one.
He didn't say bleeding, obviously, but he called him a
moron.
A moron. How do you pronounce it?
A moron.
A moron. Yes, a moron. Right. So, an Italian newspaper, El Messaggero, wrote an article headlined "The Scandal in London." Right. Too much favouritism for the England team, which they describe Ratton's dismissal as a colossal injustice, which offended against the very essence of sport and succeeded in surrounding the England team with a hearty and definitive dislike from all who are not blinded by fanaticism.
That's a biggie.
And then again, that's where it went into Ketlin's thing that he just wants to forget about the dreadful experience and he had no option to say.
Oh, the referee made his comment.
Bobby Moore had this to say. The most chivalrous of all gentlemen had this to say.
A bastion of good taste and manners.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He had this to say. Moore insisted the Argentinians did do nasty things. They did tug your hair. They did spit at you. They did poke you in the eyes. No, they did kick you when the ball was miles away and nobody was looking. But you know what? I just said the only way to deal with them is to beat the bastards.
I'm sure that's exactly what he said. Yeah. What did Sir Ralph have to say about all this?
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah. at the end of the game, one of the English players, George Cowan, tried to swap jerseys with one of the Argentinian players, and Alf comes racing onto the pitch, grabs him by the wrist, by the forearm, pulls his arm down. He pulls his arm back and says, "George, how can you even think about changing jerseys with one of these animals?" What is that?
This is supposed to be a friendly game of football.
That's it. Actually, but in fairness, the English press, someone in the English press had this to say. Like, it wasn't only the Argentinians that were unimpressed by the referee, right? So in the Sunday Times, Brian Glanville described the referee as a small man strutting potentially about the field, bald, brown head gleaming in the sunshine as he put name after Argentinian name into his notebook. One was reminded of a schoolboy collecting railway engine numbers.
That's a different kind of train spotting than what I would expect.
I think that tells us all about all we need to know about Brian,
and his privileged background.
Yeah, so listen, I'd say Brian went to see Sir Stanley's notes in Zurich all the way.
100%. He's a prime candidate to go.
Yeah. Anyway, so listen, again, you love when a plan comes together, because at this stage, they're getting away with, they're getting almost literally murder here, because
they're after getting rid of 3 of the South American.
Well, listen, job done, because England are into the semis, and their German cousins. Except the German cousins are in our
Northern European neighbours.
Yeah. Well, sure. The royal family are all half German. Yeah, they're all Habsburgs or whatever the fuck we call. They're in now. They're into the semis, and then in the semi-final, then they're due to play Eusebio's Portugal, and the match is originally meant to take place in Goodison Park.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, though, does it? It gets moved to the
bigger venue, and the bigger venue is where England have been stationed for the whole tournament.
Yeah, they just haven't budged, and it's massive home advantage. I looked up some things on this, and like home advantage was such a big thing. Someone actually calculated that since 1980, home advantage has been worth about 2/3 of a goal per game in international football.
Wow.
Yeah. So
even more back then, I'd imagine.
Exactly, Mark. Yeah, exactly. However, in '66, home advantage was even greater. Travel then was arduous, as we know. The Argentinians.
Tell the Brazilians and the Argentinians about that.
Exactly. Referees were easily swayed. Especially when they're Stanley, especially when they're asked to do so. Yeah, and local fans often hostile. So listen, in that background, then, as we've already examined, then it was time for the Portuguese to get a bit of it. So the Portuguese Eusebio himself always believed that the organisers had illegally moved England and Portugal semi-final from Goodison in Liverpool. This is Portugal had played all their group games in Goodison. Sorry, not all their group games. Excuse me. Where Portugal had come to feel at home. They were based in Liverpool.
Yeah.
They were based in Liverpool. So I think they played their quarter final there. And they had felt at home there, and then he moved it to Wembley. Sorry, and he had believed that it was illegal. Now, in fairness, it wasn't illegal, right? It wasn't illegal, but you know how you have to go about getting a venue moved, Mark?
No.
Not the English FA can't do it. No. FIFA is the only body.
That's the same thing.
Same thing when you have fucking Stanley Roos in charge, yeah. So Sir Stanley Roos signs off on moving the semi-final down to Wembley. FIFA was free to decide which semi-final will be played at which venue. However, this is exactly the sort of decision that went the host way. So,
of course, you can see it. And I wonder where they brought down from Liverpool by those London cabbies.
Yeah, and
did they arrive on time for the kickoff?
Exactly. Listen, anyway, so they beat Portugal 2-1.
Yeah, I know.
But again, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, Nobby Styles followed Eusebio all around the pitch for the whole game.
Yeah, Eusebio basically
man-marked him out of it,
He got the Pele treatment, didn't he? He got kicked out of it. And I'd imagine you're right. I think if it's a last-minute venue change, there's no doubt that if it was meant to be in Goodison and Portugal had become to feel at home there, they were in Liverpool, and they probably did have to spend 6, 7, 8 hours travelling down.
And
the rest of it, because they wouldn't have flown, they drove down. So and the rest of it,
they would have got lost along the way too.
Probably lost along the way and everything else. So just again,
If I know Sir Stanley.
yeah. They're into the final anyway, right? It's job done. Sorry. We should briefly mention, because it's a little bit important, because we should briefly mention that Germany beat the Soviet Union in the other semi-final. And why that's important is because the most famous linesman in football in history was from the Soviet Union. So that's one reason why he might go on then to make the most famous decision in football in history.
Well, that semi-final was a replay of Operation Barbarossa.
Yeah,
but it was played in warmer conditions, so it favoured the Germans.
Yeah. So that's what
they decided to play it in the summer, which is what Hitler maybe should have done.
And, which gives
if only the World Cup had happened before the World War.
if that bit that winter hadn't come in, we'd be doing this podcast in German. Anyway, listen, so
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. So anyway, they're out into the final. So we know everybody knows what 66 was. So if you want to just take it to us briefly, Mark.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, the Azerbaijan, or the Russian linesman, as we call him.
Soviet linesman.
He had a big part to play.
Just before that, though, obviously it's where it goes. Are England are winning 2-0, and the Germans.
Well, the first goal goes to Germany. England got 2-1 up.
Yeah.
And in the last minute of the 90 minutes, Germany scored. Equalised, right? So they're into the extra time, and we all know what happened with the third England goal. The Russian linesman watched the ball come down on or over the line. I think if we had VAR now, we'd know once and for all. Well, maybe. Once and for all.
Yeah, so just to get into this as well, so the third goal is obviously the goal of contention. So since scientific studies have showed since that the ball didn't cross the line, you know. And the important thing is that the point is that Baramov, who was the linesman, he couldn't have made the decision from where he was. So any referee will tell you if there's in that situation, if there's an increment of doubt, it goes in favour of the defending team. His decision was incorrect, right? So,
but he might have had a couple of things on his mind.
Like what?
That influenced his decision.
What, man?
Well, number one, as you said, his home nation had been beaten by the Germans
in the semis,
in the quarters, in the semis. Yeah. Then of course you have the fact that his dad fought in World War II in Operation Barbarossa.
No. He fought. Oh, he fought the Germans in World War II, right? His dad dies during the war. I don't know. But still, I think if it wasn't wartime, the outfit would have been a better shape. It would have survived, right? So you have he's fighting. He fought the Germans in World War II in Operation Barbarossa, like you said. His dad dies because of the German invasion of Russia. So you have he's very much on. He's on the opposite side to the Germans, very much on the opposite side, Mark. And listen, Mark, if on opposite side you mean on the opposite side of the country who tried to annihilate half your population and then plan to enslave the other half of the population to work in their
serfs.
If you had fought that.
I wonder would I have put up the flag in the same circumstances.
Who knows what crazy decisions could have been made. Very much so on the other side.
Very much on the other side.
So I think again, Sir Stanley's really outfoxed the Germans here, because the Germans are in on the conspiracy. The German referees have made sure that Brazilians get knocked out in the earlier stages. They've made sure the Argentines got out. Now, I'm not saying he knows that there's going to be that decision where the ball lands on the line. He obviously nobody knows that.
He gets lucky there.
But he knows that the referee is Swiss, isn't it? We forgot this. They get them. They choose to get a very neutral referee.
The most neutral. The only things people go to Switzerland for is Toblerones and to die. And to look at Sir Stanley's notes and during.
So,
of course.
Yeah.
So, a lot of Dutch.
Yeah. Which is, I'm sure a fucking... which I'm sure when they go, are you sure you want to do this? As the person's making up their mind, they quickly show them the notes and they say, take me from this world now. Take me from this world now.
I've seen it all. I've seen the notes. That's all I need to see.
Right, so we very much, and then also then I think you have the besides all those things, what does he has, you know, the home advantage and everything else. He's a lot of pressure on him in the stadium. So he makes the decision then that it did cross the line and that the Germans were going to go 3-2 down. And obviously then there's the last goal, the famous, they think it's all over. It is now. It's in the last minute. But the Germans are chasing the game at that stage. So
exactly, the men up the pitch. But so England have won the tournament, and what you're left with is what I can only describe as Nigel Farage's wet dream, which is 100,000 Union flags. Germans prostrate on the ground. England top of the world.
Lording
over everyone.
Lording over anybody who might dare to speak a Latin language.
Different language.
Sorry, different language. Anyway, so listen, though, as disgusting as it is, we know that they are world champions, but at least that we now let people know what really happened.
And it wasn't all down to sport and meritocracy.
Exactly, and it wasn't. Exactly, and it wasn't this glorious tournament that the BBC have piped out and into us for 50 odd years. You know,
50 odd years. There was a lot more to it.
Thank you for listening to Reeling in the Tears, the show that brings you 50 years of English footballing failure.